Friends, welcome back. This video we will discuss some more Para Jumble questions that are generally asked for CAT and other management entrance examinations. The exercise is given in the PDF link to the exercise is given in the video description. So I would suggest that you please attempt the exercise first and then come back and watch the video to get more clarity on the techniques that we have used, that your learning will be the maximized, and you are able to take home the points that you can use in your actual exam to arrive at the answers. All right, we will straight away go to the questions. The first question is talking about the relationship and the divergences between Greek and Egyptian mythology, and what led to the problem of thinking about the Egyptian mythology with a Greek point of view. So this is the essential idea of the topic. And then once you read the questions or read the sentences, you can make some connections between certain points or make sentence pairs. This is the first thing you should try to do. If the passage is a little bit confusing, you should make sentence pairs and then form the connections between the sentence pairs. So here, how can you make the sentence pairs? See, there is his book concerning Isis and Osiris is given. So, who is the only person who is discussed here? The Greek origin historian and philosopher Plutarch. So, what are the two sentences saying? The Greek origin philosopher probably visited Egypt during the first century, and he wrote a book regarding the Egyptian myths of Isis and Osiris, which is interpreting the Egyptian myths from a Greek point of view. Why? Because this person is a Greek historian. So this is what the passage is saying. Whereas the passage is in there are a lot of connections between Greek and Egyptian mythology, but they are very different in scope and function. So the why the connections or why the people started mistaking Egyptian mythology with the Greek and Roman mythology is that because of this. That is why he says that this person visited Plutarch is an example of a Greek historian who visited Egypt, and he interpreted the Egyptian mythology from a Greek point of view, since he is a Greek origin historian. So this is you can say B and D is a sentence pair, right? And because of such kind of interpretations, what happens? The habit of perceiving Egypt through Greek or Roman eyes. So this is logically following this statement B, because sources like this means sources like the book that is written by Plutarch. So sources like these, it is given these. Here we are talking about you. So you might have a doubt. We are talking only about one book here. So why this plural form these? So this is only an example. He says that the Greek historian visiting Egypt and writing a book on Egyptian myths from a Greek point of view. This is an example. So such sources. So there might be many sources like this, and this is giving the rise to the habit of understanding Egypt through Greek or Roman eyes. So this is the problem. So you try to interpret Egyptian mythology from a Greek or a Roman point of view, and this is damaging for the study of Egyptian myths. So this tendency to perceive Egyptian mythology through Greek or Roman eyes is very much damaging to the study of Egyptian myth. Why? Because Egyptian myth is different from the Greek myth. So this is why he is the sentence. So what you can say about the first sentence, very definitely you can say A, because A is what the problem is. So when you say this is very damaging for the Egyptian mythology, first you should state that this kind of tendency of looking at Egyptian mythology from a Greek or Roman point of view is not correct. So that is what this first sentence is saying, that they are very different in scope and function. So the Plutarch visited, and then he wrote a book which is interpreting Egyptian mythology from a Greek or point of view. So sources like this are interpreting myths about important deities from a different point of view, and this is very damaging for the study of Egyptian. A, B, D, C, E is a very clear answer here. So once you are able to form the sequence A, B, D, C, you can easily eliminate this one and this one. So then it becomes a question of, after you form the sequence BDC, you only have to automatically you can see that E will become the last one. A cannot be the final sentence because A is something that introduces the topic. So that is why you can ignore this. So ABDC will be the answer. So ABDC is clearly given here. Whatever the links Egyptian have a different scope, the probably did miss. The word probably is very important because he is saying that this might have been one reason why people started looking at Egyptian mythology from a Greek or Roman point of view. That is why he said that probably did visit and his book. Then so these kind of sources gave rise to the tendency of understanding Egypt through Greek or Romanized, and this tendency has been particularly damaging. So this means this habit. This is very clearly connected to this. B, A, B, D, C is the clear answer. Now go to the next one. Next one is slightly difficult and confusing. So in such cases, I told you always try to make sentence pairs or sequences, then try to form a logical connection between the sentence pairs or the sequences that will make your task easier. So if you try to understand or unjumble the entire passage as a whole, it will be difficult. So try to break the passage into different portions and then try to form sentence pairs. So here we are talking about conscience. Conscience is that particular unique quality that only human beings have, and how we can develop the conscience. We can develop the conscience through training, continuous training. Just like a person, an athlete is continuously training his muscles, and a scholar is continuously training his mind. Conscience has to be continuously educated, and this education is not very easy, and it requires regular reading of literature, etc., etc. All those things are talked about. So you can say that the statements A, B, C, uh, D, E are talking about conscience in one way or another, whereas F is talking about a completely different thing. What is renewal? So, what is renewal? So, we will first focus on this one. Renewal is a principle and the process that empowers us to move in an upward spiral of growth of continuous improvement. So, renewal means when you try to improve yourself continuously, that process is called a renewal. Then, what can you say about any other sentence is there which talks about renewal? You see, it is a process of continuing an upward spiral of growth. So here also, to make meaningful and consistent progress along that spiral, we need to consider one other aspect of renewal, which is unique to human endowment that directs its upward movement, which is our conscience. So this statement is introducing the concept of conscience after we talk about continuous improvement of human beings, which is called renewal. So renewal is a process by which human beings try to continuously improve themselves to move upward in a growth path. And this continuous growth along that spiral is particularly dependent on a unique human quality, which is called conscience. So this conscience will direct us towards this upward movement. So you can say that F and C form a sentence pairs. F is talking about renewal, and C is talking about why conscience is important in that continuous renewal or continuous upward growth of human beings. So FC is a sentence pair. So here we have introduced the subject of conscience. Then what should be the one? We have to further elaborate what conscience is. So where you can see that, hey, conscience is that quality that senses our congruence or disparity with correct principles. Means conscience is that particular quality which senses or which makes us feel about our harmonious relationship with some principles or ideals, or our disparity with certain principles or ideas. So our character might be having some things which are common with certain ideals, or we are not having these ideals. So this our senses will tell us whether we are having that harmonious relationship with certain principles and lifts us towards them. So if you do not have it, it is our senses will lift us towards them when it is in shape. When it is in shape means when this quality is there in ourselves. So when you have this conscience, it will help us to understand whether we have certain ideals in our character or not, and it will also guide us towards achieving those ideals. So this is why conscience is this is the definition of conscience. Then what? Once you understand this, F, C, and A means F and C are talking about renewal and how conscience is important for renewal, and A is talking about what conscience is. Then, then what? Then you can say how to educate the conscience. So just as the education of nerve and sinew is vital to the excellent athlete, and the education of mind is vital to the scholar, education of the conscience is vital to the highly effective person. So this is a the next sentence. So it says that talks about the importance of education for developing conscience. So just like an athlete needs continuous training of his nerves and muscles, and a scholar needs continuous training of his mind, an effective person needs continuous training of his conscience. So this is the next sentence. Then you can easily form the other sentence. Which one? This one. Training and educating the conscience, however, requires even greater concentration. So what is the meaning here? Means if you want to train your mind or train your body, it requires not that much effort, but training your conscience, it requires greater concentration. Greater means it is a comparative term. So it needs more concentration than training your mind or training your body. So that is why it is and more consistently honest living. So these are the things required for training the and educating the conscience of CAD. Then how that training can be done? Very clearly, you can say E. It requires regular feasting on inspiring literature. What requires training and educating the conscience requires regular feasting means regular reading of inspiring literature, thinking noble thoughts, and above all, living in harmony with its small voice means the small voice of the conscience. Conscience will not be talking to you in a very loud voice. It will be talking to you in a very small voice from inside your mind. You should be able to listen to that voice. Only then you will be able to develop your conscience. So FCADBE is a very clear answer here. So first, we form the sentence pairs FC. That will help us to understand that A should be the next one, and then DB. So FCADBE will be the clear and correct answer. Once you have this FC itself, you can remove. No, once you have FC, you cannot remove anything. But FCA, once you have this FCA, uh, see, FCA itself is enough for you because if you are confident about that FCA, all other things are removed. So FCA is the only one. Then you make this DBE, then the answer becomes very clear. This is how you cut down your time or try to reduce your time while unjumbling passages. But you need to be sure about your selection of the sequence. If you are very sure about the sequence you have selected and only one option is having that sequence, then you don't have to worry. Go with that option. Just see the other statements and see whether they are logically consistent with the sequence that you have formed. Then you can easily go for, without wasting too much time, you can easily go for that answer. This is how you reduce your time in Para Jumble questions. So renewal is continuous improvement, and to make progress along that upward spiral, we need a particular unique human quality, which is our conscience. And conscience is the quality that senses our confidence. And just as muscles, athletes need muscles to be trained, the effective person needs conscience to be educated, and that educating the conscience is requiring greater concentration, and it is done through reading important literature, thinking about thoughts, etc. So very logical. How you unjumble it. Then the third question. The third question is talking about how modern societies are having less violence than ancient societies, and how the number of people who die in conflicts, wars, etc. in the modern societies are much less when compared to the earlier societies, and this has been brought about by certain research. So this is the essential idea in this particular passage. Now, how to unjumble it. So again, the same technique that we use in the previous ones. Try to form sentence pairs or sequences, then everything else will fall into place. So what is the thing you can do here? People in modern society are far less likely to die in battle than those in traditional cultures. So in ancient cultures, a lot of people, more people used to die in battle, whereas in modern societies, less number of people are dying in battle. So how that is supported or justified? Yeah. The first and second world wars and all the horrific deaths of 20th century resulted in deaths of 3% of the global population. So only 3% of the, less than 3% of the global population died in the first and second world wars and all the other conflicts that happened in the 20th century. You know that the first and second world wars and all other wars that happened in the 20th century happened in from the year 1919 onwards. So this is why this sentence says that only less than 3% of the global population died in the wars in the 20th century. And then how you can justify this? Because you have to further say that how it contrasts with the traditional cultures, because our argument is that less in modern societies, less number of people are dying in battle than traditional cultures. So we have talked about the number of people dying in modern society. Then we have to talk about the number of people dying in traditional culture. So this statement will give you that fact. According to the Lawrence Keeley of the University of Illinois in Chicago, that is less than the proportion of violent deaths. That is means what, which is 3% of the population. So this 3% is less than the proportion of violent deaths for males in typical pre-state societies. What is a pre-state society? The societies where that existed before nations were formed. So such kind of societies are called pre-state societies. State means a country. So societies that existed, or the prehistoric societies where tribes were there, there were no countries. In such societies where weapons were only clubs, spears, etc., means rather than guns and bombs. Whereas guns and bombs have the potential to kill more people, but even then, the number of people who died in pre-state societies were much greater than the number of people who died in modern societies. This is the meaning. So this is directly to be connected with C. So first you state a theory, then you support the theory using these two statements. So A is that theory that says that people in modern societies are less likely to die in wars than traditional cultures. So then we talk about the people who died in the wars in the modern society, then compare it with the number of people who died in the pre-state societies or the olden societies. And these uh, three statements will justify the claim in the statement A. So by putting these three together, we can say that the modern society people are less likely to die in battle. Now, what then? What then? The best and most surprising news to emerge from research on warfare is that humanity as a whole is much less violent than it used to be. So, where this sentence will fit? This sentence should be at the beginning. Why? Because it is talking about something, some surprising news to emerge from research on warfare. So the research on warfare gives us a surprising news that humanity is less violent. Then we say that people in modern societies are far less likely to die. Then this is supported. So this is the introduction. Then this theory regarding why this introduction is justified. So this introduction is justified because people in modern societies are less violent. Why they are less violent? Because the people who died in the wars in the 20th century are much less than the people who died in the wars in the pre-state society. So DAEC is a very good sequence. Then what? Then you can further endorse that point by talking about the number of less number of wars that happened after the Second World War. So you are saying that people in modern society are far less likely to die. You compared and contrasted between the 20th century and the prehistoric societies. Then you further enforce that point by saying that even after the Second World War, there have been very little, few means nil. I mean, there have been no international wars since the Second World War and no wars between developed nations. Is one more reason for talking about D and A. So D says that people in modern societies are less violent. Uh, um, uh, this is the surprising news that emerges from research, and why they are less violent. And because of they are less violent, they are less likely to die in battle. And these two statements are uh, supported or justified by the sequence of ECB. We talk about the number of people who died in the modern society, number of people who died in the prehistoric societies. This number of people who died in prehistoric societies greater than the number of people who died in modern societies. And there no wars have happened after the Second World War. It means that there is less likelihood of people dying in battle now. So DATCB is very clearly the answer here. If you have formed the sequence DAE, that itself is enough, because once you form the sequence DAE, all these can be ignored. So DAECB, this is the answer you can find out. So that way you can reduce the time you spend on one Para Jumble question. So pricing news less likely sample for this, and this is less than the people who died in pre-state societies, and there have been no wars in this. Okay. Next question. It is talking about how class struggles are much more pronounced than struggles between nations, and how the fate of men is defined in the modern society through class struggles or wars between classes. Classes means different sections of the society are called classes, and this statement is further exemplified by Karl Marx, who had made a statement that the history of all existing societies is class. All these things are talked about here. Again, the same technique, try to find sequences or try to find sentence pairs and then try to connect the sentence pairs using some logic that is underlying in the passage. So what is the thing you can do here? See, we are talking about the tendency of this statement is clear. What statement? What is the statement made as per the passage? The Karl Marx is making a statement, an important place among the various formulations of Marx historical material. So there are various theories regarding Marx historical materialism, out of which one important theory is that is based on his statement. What is his statement? The history of all hitherto existing societies is history of class struggle. The history of all hitherto means the history of all the societies that existed till date is a history of class struggle. The statement made by Karl Marx, and the tendency of this statement is clear. So what this statement is implying, it implies that history is propelled and the fate of man is determined by the war of classes and not by the war of nations. So it is not by the war of nations that the fate of man is determined. It is determined by the war of classes. So CAB is a very clear sentence pair, right? Then what can you talk about? Say again. See, in this option D, there is a phenomenon that is it says that, but over and above this, class struggle and class interest are capable of explaining phenomena which traditional history may not be able to explain. So class struggle and class interest can explain certain phenomena which traditional history is not able to explain. And what is that phenomenon? An example of such phenomenon which is of great significance is the historical trend towards Marx theory, the historical trend towards increasing productivity. So one such a phenomenon that can be explained through class struggle is the Marxist theory regarding increasing productivity. So DB becomes another sentence pair. So it says that class struggle is much more important than struggles between nations, and the history of and the fate of man is decided by class struggles. This is stated by Karl Marx. So CA. Then this class struggle is also able to explain some other phenomena which traditional society history is not able to explain. Example, Marxist theory regarding increasing productivity. Now, where do you fit in E? In the casual explanation of historical developments, including national wars, class interest must take the place of the alleged national interest of a nation's ruling class. What is the meaning? When you try to explain history through in a casual manner, you will say that a lot of history is developed through struggles between nations or wars between nations. But the passage, the author says that even and wars between nations are defined not just by national interest, but by the class struggle of the nation's ruling class. A particular country's ruling class, they have certain interests, and in order to further that interest, these nations will indulge in wars. It is not on the basis of national interest, it is on the basis of the interest of the ruling class. So again, the class struggle is paramount, it is not the national struggle. So this is what you can understand by a casual explanation of historical development. So, and then what you can say after this, what you can say over and above this means over and above what? Over and above this casual explanation of historical developments, which projects the ruling class's interest as the reason for wars. You can also explain certain other phenomena which traditional history may not be able to explain. So, traditional history is explaining historical developments as the class struggles. So, some other things also can be explained with the help of this class struggle theory. So you can say that E should come here because over and above this, or means over and above the casual explanation of historical developments on the basis of class struggles. Class struggles can also explain other phenomena which casual history or traditional history cannot explain. Traditional history is able to explain certain wars between nations on the basis of class. over and above this, class struggle is also able to explain certain phenomena which traditional history is not able to explain. So C and so EDB becomes a sequence, CA becomes a sentence pair. How to connect it? Very clearly, first we talk about the this one CA. CA means first we talk about the Marxist theory on class struggles. It is the history of man is a history of class struggle, and it is very clearly indicating that war of classes means his fate of man is determined by war of classes, not by war of nation. This is further endorsed by this statement, where history also tells us that war of classes or nations war is determined by this one. All right. So CAEDB becomes the very clear answer. All right. This is the unjumbled sequence. You can go through it. Marx's historical materialism is a statement that the statement about history of existing history of man being the history of class struggle, and it implies that all the whatever has happened and the fate of man is dependent on the war of classes, and this is how the history also casually explains all the national wars as wars of classes, but above this casual explanation, class struggle is also able to explain certain phenomena that traditional history is not able to explain, and that one such phenomenon is the phenomenon of increasing productivity. So CAEDB becomes a very clear answer. Now go to the last question. Here we are talking about a particular problem that is gripping the developing countries because of rapid urbanization and because of the growing affluence among the middle class people, which is obesity among means underweight problem or malnutrition among children and obesity among adults. And this problem is especially manifest in developing countries, where the children are becoming underweight, or whereas the adults are becoming obese. And what is the problem, or what is the underlying cause of the problem? It is the nutrition transition, or the changes in the way nutrition is happening because of the lifestyle changes and the food habit changes. Because from traditional foods, people are switching to energy deficient, low cost food, which are high in salts and fats. And because of which the children are not getting enough nutrition, so they become undernourished, whereas the adults, because of their sedentary lifestyle and less strenuous physical activity, they become obese. These are the things that are stated in the passage. Now, how can you talk about, how can you spot the opening sentence, or how can you form the sentence pairs? Among children in developing countries, underweight is more prevalent than overweight. Among adults, on the other hand, obesity has shot up. So this is talking about the contrast between children and adults in developing countries. Children are having underweight problem, and adults on the other hand. So this on the other hand is important. This is the phrase that helps you to understand that B should be followed by E. So first we have to talk about B, children, then we have to talk about E, the adults. Then what is the another sentence? Once you have this pair, we can very easily say that adults, underweight children and obese adults are two manifestations of this scourge. Scourge means a serious issue. This is a relatively new phenomenon in developing countries, especially in the middle income segment. So you can say that A is the previous sentence. So you talk about underweight children and obese adults are the examples of this scourge, which is a new phenomenon in developing countries. Then you say that among children in developing countries, underweight is more prevalent, and then among adults, obesity is more prevalent. Then of this scourge, so this will lead us to say which is the previous sentence, or which sentence should be stated before this. This problem. What is the problem here? This is the problem. While relentless poverty and hunger continues, the double burden of undernutrition and obesity afflicting millions in developing countries has rarely received careful attention. So, this problem has not received any attention. We are more focused on battle against poverty and hunger, but this double burden means double issue of undernutrition and obesity that is affecting millions in developing countries has barely received careful attention. So you can say F is the sentence that should precede E. So first we talk about the issue, then we talk about the examples or the how this issue is manifesting itself, or how this issue is coming out to the public eye, or it is displaying itself, how in the form of underweight children and obese adults. So then we discuss those in detail, FABE. Then what then? The emergence of the double burden is symptomatic of the nutrition transfer. So we are talking about the reasons why this double burden has emerged. What is double burden? Underweight problem among children and obesity among adults. So this emergence is symptomatic of the nutrition transfer underway in developing countries. So as a result of growing prosperity and urbanization. So because of prosperity among middle class and urbanization, what is happening? The ways in which nutrition is provided to the children and adults, it is undergoing a transition or a change. And what sort of transition? It is given here. Diets are shifting from traditional foods towards low cost and energy deficient foods. So instead of traditional foods, people have started eating low cost energy deficient. That is not giving any energy. As a result of which, children become undernourished. Which these foods are high in salts, fats, and sugars. And physical activity patterns have become less strenuous. Means the people are not doing any exercises or any other physical activity. Lifestyle have become more sedentary or lazy. As a result of which, what happens? Adults become obese. So children become undernourished and adults become obese because of this. So CDE is giving you the reason for the problem. So first we talk about the problem, then we talk about the manifestations, then we talk about that in detail, then we talk about why it is happening. So FABECD is very clearly the answer here. Uh, this is you can easily remove, and this also F cannot be followed by D. That is definitely not there. So this is also see. FCDBAE is a, you might think that this is a good answer because after talking about the problem, we talk about the reason for the problem, CD. Then we talk about the ABE sequence, underweight children and among adults. But this is not a proper way to structure a paragraph, because once you talk about the problem, you have to talk about the example or the how the problem is manifesting itself, what is the problem in detail, then you talk about the reason. It's a better way. And one more thing is that if you talk about the growing prosperity and urbanization in the beginning, there is no reason why you have to talk about this in the subsequent things, because already you have talked about the urbanization and growing prosperity. Then you should, there is no need for you to talk about this relatively new phenomenon, etc., etc. That is repetition. So that is one way you can see that FCD is not a correct sequence. F A B E C D will be the correct sequence. How answer will look like: F A B E C D, double burden, the manifestations of this double burden, then the explanations or the details, then emergence is symbolic of the nutrition transfer. So this double burden is indicating the way in which nutrition transition is happening, and how that nutrition transition is happening is also. Okay. This is the correct way in which you can structure this logic. So I hope this video has been useful to you. Uh, if you have liked the content, please like, share, and subscribe, and help me to maximize my reach so that it will help me to motivate, or it will motivate me to come out with further such videos that will be useful for yet another management aspirants. Thank you. Bye bye.